Okay, everybody, welcome to an episode of On Point EDC. Today I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Panasonic. Of course, this is going to be a bit of a special review because I do plan to do more camera content, specifically camera focused in the future, but I thought why not break the channel in to camera content using first the EDC format. So this is an everyday type of camera, everyday carry. Of course, typically it's going to cover things that are quite pocketable and just you keep with you, whether they be, you know, that pocket knife, and, you know, mostly the channel is about wristwatches and those reviews, but I mean, those all things kind of fall into that everyday EDC, and I think a big part of that these days is going to be picking up a dedicated camera in the same way that now a lot of people are wearing, including myself, dedicated wristwatches to tell the time versus just using their phone. I think there's been a similar sentiment over the past few years to say, hey, get a dedicated camera to take photos with and video versus just using your phone, which is nice because it's kind of always with you. Now, a little bit about the Panasonic brand. They were founded back in 1918. They are Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. The Lumix brand being it's a sub-brand, being their digital camera division established in 2001. The name Lumix stands for the smart and sustainable combination of optical and digital imaging technology, with Lumi being representing luminance and mix being mixture. Yes. So that all makes sense. Now, they really do specialize in that enthusiast / prosumer market, and when I say prosumer, you know, it's more so that consumer grade but with professional capabilities. Now, in terms of the genre, of course, an EDC camera, that's just going to be an everyday carry capable piece in terms of size, build quality, and versatile capabilities. This is the LX100 Mark II, and it was originally released in 2018, and it's the lesser known sister camera to the Leica D-LUX 7. It's a larger sensor compact digital camera with a fixed lens and a focal length equivalent to 24 to 75 millimeters. It has a micro four thirds sensor, and it is kind of a cult classic at this point. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, quick customary wristwatch check before we dive in. I do have my G-Shock Virtual Armor on in kind of the similar theme of that, I would say, retro futuristic design, and, you know, the idea of taking something that is typically going to meant to be, you know, quite attainable and function forward and making a premium variation of it, right? Full titanium sapphire glass, all of the niceties in terms of modern connectivity and updating for accuracy, like via Bluetooth, GPS, or anything like that. So, and I think, yeah, it has a great kind of black with red accent aesthetic. But yeah, I did want to talk about cameras. You know, of course, since the beginning of this channel, for the most part, I've been using some level of a Lumix camera since the very beginning. I mean, I think my first episode might have been shot on a GoPro, but after that, it was pretty much going to be Lumix cameras. And we can talk about that and my kind of history with Lumix over the years in another episode, but I did want to focus on this gem here because I think there's a lot of great parallels, of course, to you know, cameras and watches and pocket knives, right? In terms of just that additional tactile engagement that you're getting from something that is a dedicated functional tool versus maybe just using kind of a do-it-all type of solution, whether it be whipping out your phone to take a picture or a video or to tell you the time, right? It's nice to have something that's a little bit more dedicated, more deliberate, and I think that's really happening within the camera space. Another interesting parallel is going to be the level of collectivity, right? In terms of taking things and, you know, they do have a life cycle where they're a new release and they have a certain price point, and then eventually they become a little older and then they get replaced and then the prices drop. And then some time passes, and let's say within the wristwatch community, right, it can be something like a neo vintage find, which is going to be, you know, something that 20 years old. So that would be late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of those wristwatches are now quite collectible again. And because of the rapid advancements within camera technology, particularly digital camera technology, you're seeing those life cycles much trimmer, right? And then you also have things that are similar to, let's say, sneakers or pocket knives, where, once things get discontinued, they become more desirable, especially as brands and the general market move on to, fulfill new market share versus kind of producing and overproducing things that have been abundantly available for many years. Now, high-end point and shoots are not as available as they once were because of the cell phone and the advancements within cell phone cameras. Now, this is the Lumix LX100 Mark II. And it's just kind of a cult classic at this point, and I didn't want to share it with you guys before it becomes so inaccessible because of the price point. I mean, this was originally released at $999, and honestly, they range anywhere from around $650 to $1,600 at this time of recording this. Could those things fluctuate if they release another version, whatever? The Leica, their sister camera, in terms of the D-LUX7, they did release a D-LUX8, which is still very similar to this, and I think this is an amazing alternative to that. There are also cameras like, let's say, the Fujifilm X100VI that are hugely popular right now and backward, and people are paying an absolute premium for them, and I think this is a great comparable. Same for the D-LUX8, right? And then even if you go into things like the Sony RX100 and their latest variation, which I think is going to be the Mark VII, or the latest Ricoh GR III, all of those are sold out. So it's a niche thing, but it's a hungry, niche, enthusiast-driven environment. And I think this is a great enthusiast pick for anybody that is looking within that space, right? Because it does offer you a lot of great features. So we can see here, okay, just a little lens cap, but you do get also a flash. Now, it's not built in, but it is included. And, if it is something that you do buy aftermarket, right, at this point, you can't buy them really new. You can buy open box or something like that, factory refurbished. Those are a lot of great options. But the nice thing is you can have that, right? It pops on. And again, this piece here is just quite handsome, and it just it's retro in a way, right? And I just really like that. It feels great in hand. It's actually quite small, guys. I mean, let's see here, a pack of playing cards. It's going to have a very similar footprint there. Of course, it's going to be thicker, maybe 3 decks high, right? But across wise, when we're looking at this, it's not that much different, right? So it is very I'd say, I wouldn't say pocketable. Of course, you could probably put it in something like a jacket pocket, but it's not necessarily pocketable from the traditional standpoint that you would think of pocketability, into a pant pocket or something like that. But I mean, this thing is just gorgeous. Of course, one of the first upgrades I did was to put on a little screen protector in the same way that you would put on one on your cellular phone. Now you can see here that, this is unprotected. It doesn't have, it was unprotected from the factory. And because it doesn't flip or anything like that, you can't flip it over. So I think that's always a really good mod to have. Of course, I did put it on this cool little strap here. Nothing crazy, nothing super expensive. This actually came from Amazon. I want to say it was like $16. So it fulfills, in terms of that aesthetic again, and then functionally, I dig it. Like, it totally works for me because of the size of this camera. I can wear it around my neck and just, take it with me. And it's not, super heavy. It's not super front heavy, even though it does have that beautiful, like a glass. Now, let's get into some of the details here. So this is considered a larger sensor compact, and you hear the word micro four thirds, it sounds like it's small, but really that's because of the form factor. That's been a big selling point of the micro four thirds space. And in 2024, I think it's still a super capable, platform. And I shooting this on a micro four thirds camera right now, my Lumix G9 II, which is more of a flagship. But in terms of kind of everyday capabilities, guys, I mean, just same thing with wristwatches, right? Where, I mean, this has 200 meters of water resistance. A recreational diver is probably going to go 40 meters. So again, things are just overbuilt, right? And the quality here, and you think 17 megapixels, that doesn't sound like much. Guys, 17 megapixels is still a lot bigger than the resolution of your screen you're watching this on. And if you're going to go to 100% size, right, in terms of the scale on when you're looking at something, it's going to be larger than your screen. You have to like scroll over a few times. So it still takes a great photo. And I'll go ahead and work in some of my photos that I've taken with this over time. I did a little kind of photo walk with my daughter not too long ago. I figure I could use those by the beach in Oceanside. So good stuff. All clean JPEGs. I don't do any editing or anything like that. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this particular camera. Now, the micro four thirds sensor is great. You know, it's named for its 4:3 aspect ratio. And here you actually do have a couple of options, which is very interesting, is that they do offer you options on the aspect ratio here. So you can do 4:3, which is going to be the most native. And in terms of that sensor, which is actually about a 21.77 megapixel sensor, it's going to be effectively cropping just to about 17 megapixels. And then depending on which variation you use, it can be smaller size, because again, it's a physical crop of the actual sensor itself. And you know what, we'll go ahead and remove this. And guys, there's a button on here, so make sure you do that. And yeah, if you get one of these, understand that is there so you don't just rip that thing out, right? But so we can just get a better kind of clear look at this from a top-down perspective. Now, this thing is great. It does shoot JPEG and RAW. Again, I'm using the JPEGs. I love the color science that I'm finding here. So I'm not really into the editing side. But the nice thing is, hey, I have a good platform if I ever do really take interest in editing and really tweaking things. Another nice feature is that you get video resolution up to 4K or 30 frames per second, which is, you know, pretty outstanding. I'm shooting this at 4K 60 frames per second because again, it's a more flagship camera that I'm shooting this on. But we can go ahead and power this on here. And you can see, very nice. And the cool thing is, it is a touchscreen format, so it's quite modern from that perspective. And I just really dig it. And then you also do have, of course, the eyepiece here. So if I can kind of trick the sensor that I'll pretend like it's my face, then maybe you could get in and maybe it'll be really hard to see, but yeah, probably just a bit tough to see. But you do have that viewfinder, and it works. I find myself rarely using the viewfinder. It is nice for composition, because you can really zero in. But you know, for my purposes, in terms of kind of street photography, more documentarian style of just trying to capture, you know, my daily, journey and progress through life, you know, with my kids and family and everything. It works really, really well. And, you know, I tend to use the screen more often than not. And again, that's from, you know, spending so much time shooting through a cell phone for so many years. So it is still quite nice. And again, these originally retailed for $999. So yeah, this was meant to be a pretty premium product back in the day. And I shouldn't say back in like 2018's that long ago, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty premium product. The tactile engagement, check out this beautiful manual aperture ring. It's nice and clicky. Great turn, great throw. And then when you're in automatic, there's actually extra detent there, so it'll stay in the A and you're not going to accidentally, you know, swap that out there. And then you do have, of course, if you do want to do manual focus, and I know focus can be a point of contention for people that have either just known about Lumix for a while or Lumix users. For photography, I think the focus has been more than enough. It's been great, but it's been kind of video in terms of some of the older contrast detection versus phase detection, which now I do have phase detection on this G9 II. You don't get that here, but again, this is more of a dedicated stills camera for me. You also do get, of course, some nice, dedicated dials here on top related to exposure, and it's nice. So you have all these dials. Of course, you can, get your wide versus tight in terms of the actual zoom range here. So the cool thing is that, yeah, you have the equivalent of 24 millimeters to 75 millimeters, which is great. So those are some great focal lengths, almost like you're having a prime lens, built on to the camera. And then, yeah, those are equivalent to 35 millimeters without overcomplicating things. If you were to get to, like, let's say an interchangeable system, then you're going to have things like, there's going to be kind of that magnification where, a 20 millimeter lens is a 40 millimeter equivalent in terms of that focal length. But yeah, these are really, really cool. Again, I do plan to do some more kind of camera centric stuff in the future where we can get into some more of those specific details. And for those of you that are into cameras and this is your first time discovering my channel, this is really meant to be more about the use case and kind of the functionality of this piece. And you'll see here, guys, look at that, f-stop of 1.7 to 2.8. So very fast glass from that perspective, and that's built in, and it's Leica glass, which is fantastic. So, optically, the color readout, everything like that is going to be quite nice. And yeah, again, it has a nice tactile engagement, nice weighty feel to it. And I dig it, guys. And yeah, again, prices ranging from $650 to about $1,600. Like if you get something that's like, almost new or just, new old stock kind of thing, you can expect to pay quite a bit for these. Or again, they're kind of ranging into that quite collectible space. I mean, I think at that price point, you might as well just get the D-LUX 8 from Leica and get a little bit of a bigger flex and some updated materials and everything like that. You won't get this nice grip though, which is, I think, one of the biggest advantages over the D-LUX 7, which is going to be the sister camera to this particular Lumix release. Now, the body feels great, guys, in terms of it feeling very solid. It's mostly metal in construction. The grip has that nice kind of textured leatherette. And then the dimensions, yeah, about 4.5 inches end to end here wide, about 2.6 inches tall, and then about 2.5 inches thick there. So I think it all is very nice, and it's just under a pound, so about 0.86 pounds in terms of the weight. And of course, there's going to be different things that can weigh the camera down, which is, you have your battery or, your different type of carrying solution. And although this is kind of a cheaper end strap, I have, an experience with much more expensive straps. I have some really cool kind of custom two-end straps, as well as Peak designs, which I really enjoy. For this, I think it's just very suiting of this particular type of camera because, again, it's something that I can wear with me around my neck and kind of take and be very casual. It could be on my neck in the car. It's not getting in the way of the seatbelt or anything like that. And if I bend or reach for anything, the nice thing is it's not going to give me any issues of like flopping around or being too front heavy with the actual lens, although it is a nice piece of glass. So in hand ergonomics, guys, let's keep this going. It feels really great. You have a thumb rest here. You have, of course, the finger grip there. And I know that, it compares similarly to a deck of playing cards. So it's not super large, but so I don't think you really need an ultra large grip on it. You just need a little bit of purchase. And I think it just gives you just enough, at least for my kind of medium sized hands. Now, also some things to mention in terms of kind of the feeling of quality in hand. It has a nice heft to it. So it does give you a feeling of quality similar to a wristwatch, right? Like if it's solid as an automatic movement, stuff like that, it's going to feel a little heftier. It's going to feel a little bit more premium. You do get that similar vibe here versus if you pick up something that was going to be, more plasticky, even though it might have higher specs or, some updated options in terms of software. The hardware doesn't necessarily, if that doesn't feel up to par, then it's not going to be something that's going to really inspire you to carry it and go enjoy it. Now, in terms of model variants, there is still an older LX100 Mark I that's still available, lower specs, lower price point in the used market. So if you're really liking this, but maybe you're just not trying to spend that much, and yeah, you kind of understand at the end of the day, I mean, if you go down to 12 megapixels, is that really that bad either? For me, no. But I do, I was able to find a really great deal on this LX100 Mark II You know, it's actually factory refurbished, so it's basically new. And yeah, but it wasn't being sold for a new price, so that totally worked out for me. And then in terms of comparable options, guys, yeah, in terms of cameras that are still available new, the Leica D-LUX 8, Fujifilm X100 VI, they're definitely popular models that are around $1,500, but are back ordered everywhere and normally selling at a premium for if you do find it in stock. Of course, you could kind of drop down in price point to cameras like the RX100 line or the Ricoh GR III, and the lower kind of earlier $1,000 price range, and you can get those new or, you know, of course, used, and they drop down a little bit more. But they're often sold out and back ordered as well. So, I mean, if you're going to get something used, you might, I feel like, hey, get something that's actually kind of collectible and desirable so that if you do want to upgrade or sell later on, your money is pretty safe. And again, that goes into similar thought process for things like, hey, if you're getting a limited edition, you know, set of sneakers or, you know, pocket knives, wristwatches, stuff like that. It's nice to kind of think about that value retention over time versus something that's going to completely depreciate as soon as you buy it. So yeah, it does make you feel a little bit more comfortable about trying something new, right? If you're not a hardcore photographer, having that optionality, I think, is really, really cool. So for me, guys, bottom line, much like wristwatches becoming more and more desirable, again, for kind of that dedicated time-telling, dedicated cameras for videos and stills are also becoming more and more popular for more deliberate and you know, and an inspired experience. And the LX100 Mark II is a bit of a cult classic at this point, you know, for its near premium build and construction. Now, this isn't going to feel as good as the Leica variation, but it's going to be more than enough for most folks, and that's the same thing for the image quality. You know, so yeah, I mean, you combine that with a larger sensor, you know, than most any phone or action camera that are going to be out there on the market. Add that to having that fast like a glass at a very contained cost, thanks to non-interchangeable lenses. I think this makes it a great EDC option, and sometimes you can be spoiled for choice. You can have too many options. When it comes to my other cameras, yeah, interchangeable lenses, it makes me wonder which lens should I bring then, like what will be the compromise versus a prime versus a zoom versus a faster aperture, more depth of field, versus maybe less, right? So this is nice that it keeps, I just put it around my neck. I don't have to put it in a bag, right? And I can say, oh, this is going to be the camera that I'll just take pictures with when we go over to the beach, when we go for a walk, you know, or we go, you know, have lunch, brunch, dinner with friends. So, you know, I think that also is a positive, right? And some of you are thinking, oh, I can get something that's interchangeable, more, you know, I can have more versatile use cases. That's cool. But sometimes having something that's just more deliberate, more purposeful, it just makes it a great EDC option in terms of, again, everyday carry. It doesn't have to be overly specialized. And then you get that manual control engagement, which is really nice, clean out of camera JPEGs, crispy 4K video. And yeah, this thing is just, it's cool. I dig it. And again, this isn't, you know, a camera review like you might see on other channels across YouTube. This is definitely meant to be more of kind of an everyday carry take on a camera. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I do plan on doing more segments that are going to be more camera focused just because of, again, the crossover that I see. And, you know, I'm just trying to expand the format of the channel in general and, you know, talk to you guys and share more of my passions with you all and, you know, hopefully engage with a few of you that are into similar things. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.